madness having that amount of squad players in a largely part-time league. So I don't really know. Obviously you want someone that's going to be able to manage the club and support the club, because obviously with most clubs in this sport, there's not many that make a profit. So it's going to be someone that's willing to subsidise the losses and things like that. But for me, it's a stability thing and just a bit of clarity and transparency between the board, the fans, the players, because I think there's these three entities: there's the board, the players, and the fans. And it's the players and the fans that are sort of the last to know with what things are going on. At the end of the day, it's the fans that are going to come and support the club and put money into the tills for season tickets and things like that. So I think, just stability, clarity.
It's almost it's almost a redundant question, but I assume you'll support the club, the new club, whatever they may be, whenever they may be, wherever they may fall in the structure.
I mean, it's been a real experience to sort of, especially in the last 10 years, because the first 10 years of supporting the club, it was fantastic. We were going to finals, we were playing teams from Australia and doing quite well against them, and we were set the benchmark during the very early stages of Super League. And then over the last 10 years, we've just, I think, have become immune to it. It was just this steady decline, which brings us to the point where we're at now, which is probably the lowest that a lot of supporters have felt towards the club since the Super League started, essentially. So most fans, it's just a very difficult thing to experience. I mean, it's difficult for the fans, but I obviously don't even imagine what it's like for the players and the staff that are involved with the club.
You're touching on all the right things. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so
from a low, I suppose we should look to end on a high then, and cover off maybe some of your better memories, the better times.
Obviously, like going to the finals and things like that was fantastic memories. To share that with family and friends and being at those games was brilliant. Obviously, one of the main ones for me was probably the first huge game, which was Sheffield away in 1997, where they clinched the Super League title, which was fantastic. But for me, there's things like just seeing being heavily involved with the Bull Builder Supporters Trust, just seeing, especially now with the England squad, seeing the work that's been put into the Bulls Academy, which I hope isn't lost with what's going on at the minute, because we've had some fantastic products come through the Bulls Academy in the last sort of 10 years. And just by looking at the Burgess trio and John Bateman and players like that have come through, Elliot Whitehead, there's been a real conveyor belt of talented young English players, and I just hope we don't lose that.
Well, any hypothetical new Bulls team will be heavily reliant on the youth.
I think we will be playing. I think if I take my boots down to Batley at the weekend, I might get a game. So.
Hey, you never know. We could all turn up and do 10 minutes, couldn't we? And
I think if they're asking, I'll do a stint. I won't be very good. But
well, listen, Dominic, thank you so much for joining us. It was a real pleasure to talk to you. We do have a lot of fans that come on and speak to us towards the end of seasons when we've had grand final winners and what have you. With our fingers crossed, in 10 years, if Bulls win a grand final, will you come back on and talk to us about your experience of lifting a trophy at Old Trafford again?
Fingers crossed. If that comes true, I'll definitely come back.
Superb. All right. Well, thank you very much indeed, Dominic.
No worries. Cheers. See you later.
Right, I'm now pleased to say we're joined by someone who probably needs no introduction, really. His voice you might recognise from our end-of-season recap shows, but it's Shoddy and Mungo himself, Alan Cale. Great to have you on, Alan.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so we're going to start, I suppose, with just a little bit, explain your background as a fan of the Bradford Bulls, how long you've been going to watch the club and that sort of thing.
Okay, so I've been going kind of, pre-Bulls days. My first game was October '93. It was an entire chance that we ended up going to that game. My dad kind of was going to take me to see some rugby league, and it just happened that Bradford were playing at home. I mean, where we lived, we were kind of halfway between Bradford and Leeds, so I could have been a Rhino. That was a distinct possibility going back in the day. But yeah, so my dad had kind of been around rugby league a long time, kind of in the 70s, and he'd kind of been to lots of Wembley finals and things like that. And it was a chance. It was a bit of a chance weekend in October '93, and so I was 13 at the time. So I stood on the freezing terraces at Oldfield, watching Gerald Cordell and Bree McKebby running down the wings on that particular day. So yeah, kind of from '93 onwards, kind of a fan, and obviously kind of really kind of came into it when kind of the Bulls formed kind of '95 and was at the semis and the finals in '96, '97, and kind of been a season ticket holder since kind of '96 onwards, really.
And it's sort of a family thing, is it? You all go along?
It's me, my dad and me really mainly. We're kind of the kind of my mum kind of went kind of going back in the day, back in the '70s. But so it's us really that go and have kind of been long-suffering fans, kind of certainly in the last kind of 5 or 6 years, anyway. Well, but yeah, it's a bit of a just us two really.
There's been some good times along the way, and we'll touch on those later on. But I want to go to the doom times first.
Yeah.
So I'll take you back really to November last year, and the administration was announced. What were your sort of feelings at that time?
It felt slightly inevitable. I mean, it felt, to be honest, I was very much questioning the financial future of the club. As soon as we lost the game at Featherstone, to be honest, because as soon as we missed out on the middle eighth, you knew that the financial kind of rewards that came set from some kind of central funding were going to be a lot less. And quite frankly, the amount we'd spent on the squad and the kind of the money that we'd wasted in terms of some of the players that we'd signed up that were, some quite random signings and quite bizarre signings, quite frankly. It came as no surprise, unfortunately, because I knew that the amount of money wouldn't have been what they would have budgeted for. I mean, there's no way we should have finished where we did in the table. I mean, with the squad, it was, pre-season it should have been inconceivable that we would have finished outside the middle eighth. So it felt, even back in July, I thought, I just don't understand how financially we're going to make it pay, where we thought we might be playing Leeds and Huddersfield, but we were playing, with all the respect in the world to people like Sheffield and things like that. They're not going to bring the kind of numbers that we're going to need through the gates based on what financial projections we probably had. And we always knew it was we've been walking a financial tightrope for the last 5 or 6 years. Kind of, it's been a kind of hand-to-mouth existence, and it wasn't a week didn't go by without a winding up order, did it? Really, there was always something rumoured, and it was like, oh, don't worry about it. That's normal kind of business for us, and yeah, just get on with it. But it's always a sign that there's something clearly significantly wrong with the kind of the sustainability of the club. So it wasn't a surprise.
Administration wasn't a surprise then. You'd been through that before. What about...
I mean, we're old hands at it, aren't we? Really? you assume that somebody's going to kind of ride in and declare that they're going to save the club and they're going to do this and they're going to do that.
So what about the situation then? How did you feel when this one didn't quite end the same way and there was the liquidation in the new year?
Well, the way that I describe the liquidation, it feels like we've been on life support for about 5 or 6 years, and somebody's just decided to switch it off, quite frankly. And I think that was the only solution. I think we've been stuck in this loop for far too long. Whether we'd have kind of won the £1 million game in 2015, would that have changed the situation? Possibly in the short term, that might have kind of saved us for a little bit, but I don't think actually that would have actually solved our long-term issues. To be frank, I think we are, we were never sustainable as a club. I don't think.
So let's look, I suppose, to the future now. We know there's 4 bids being considered by the RFL, and we've had details to an extent on 2 of those bids. What are your sort of hopes for the next 2 to 3 years, I suppose? And what if you were in charge of the Bulls, what would be your priorities, I suppose?
Well, I was going to say, I think I might, if I sit down the back of the sofa, I might have a couple of quid, so I might make a bid. You never know. Because it seemed like anyone that came in before didn't have a lot of money, and quite frankly, with 150k of central funding, I think the reality for Bradford Rugby League, whatever that's going to look like, is going to be a part-time team run on a very modest budget, and hoping to, quite frankly, in 2017 to stay in the division. So we have absolutely no idea who the team's going to be. We've lost our best player in Adam O'Brien, which was inevitable. We're losing good players like Mellor and people like that, people who are kind of young players who've come through the system, and they will go. Established kind of ex-Super League players have gone, Wellham's of this world, etc. So, quite frankly, we have to cut our cloth really and accept that we are, for now, until we can find a stable platform, a part-time team who are hoping to stay at the championship level. And that has to be the reality, and we have to get a kind of a spirit behind the team that was sadly lacking last year. You know, the Battlers of this world and teams like that actually overachieve with the budget that they have for their players. We're looking to get that kind of spirit going because, frankly, the players that we've brought in before haven't really done it for us. So we have to overachieve, you know, in the next few years, and to stability. You know, no administration for the next 3 years would be a success. Staying in the championship would be success. You know, there has to be an element of reality and some of the pie in the sky kind of, you know, Wembley of the North kind of stadium stuff and Super League. It's dead in the water because there is nobody within the kind of, either within Bradford as a kind of as a locality or otherwise that wants to come in and kind of invest in the club. And you have to become a community-led club because that is your only option with the kind of resources that are available to us.
I assume it's almost a pointless question to ask someone like you, but whoever ends up putting on the red, amber and black and however and wherever they are, I assume you'll still be supporting that club.
I mean, I fully accept, you know, going back to November when the kind of administration, I'd had enough. I'd kind of, you know, when the first kind of Hood era kind of administration kind of came about, I put a huge, you know, I remember you sent a tweet out about emptying your wallet into buckets, and I did that in kind of whatever year that was. I gave kind of signed items I had away for auction, and I kind of gave a huge amount in that kind of first kind of administration just to try to kind of save us. And it's just, I think there's been a huge amount of erosion of kind of faith from the fans in terms of it's just gone on, and it seems to have been, the numbers of fans have dwindled partially on the back of there's just a fatigue with the whole circumstances. You know, I would always call myself a Bradford fan, but this year I was fully anticipating that I'd be kind of a rugby league fan on tour, kind of a Brad Davis kind of approach to rugby league for this next year, because I just couldn't face the circumstances. It just felt kind of overwhelming. You know, I will always be a Bradford fan. You know, the day that I chose to go there rather than Leeds because Bradford happened to be playing Warrington. That's just happenstance, but that, you know, kind of flags kind of, you know, colours nailed to the mast. So I'll always be a Bradford fan, but it's a dire situation, and you're just looking for somebody to take it forward on an honest basis. You know, somebody to look at it and say, these are the real circumstances. We don't have, you know, much money between us, but we're going to instill a spirit, and we're going to fight this 12-point deduction, and we're going to stay in the division, and we're going to make the best fist of it. And that's where I am with it now, with kind of an element of the grieving process kind of taking place. You know,
it's certainly sobering to hear a fan like you know, say things like that. But you've got some great sensible views on that. It's good to hear. I suppose we should end on a high and a positive and rekindle some of those fires from the last 23 and a half years or so, and pick up maybe your favourite memories of the Bulls era.
Oh, blimey! It's the one that kind of sticks out in my mind was as I said, I kind of went to a lot of big kind of finals from 96, 97, kind of grand finals in 99, and we'd been through a lot of games and lost a lot of big finals, and they were kind of the the kind of albatross around the kind of